It was a split-second decision, made an impact on an entire family and then ultimately an entire community. The law we're talking about is buckling your seatbelt. 91% of people say that they buckle their seatbelt every time, and it's those split-second decisions that can really impact a life. There were 4 people in the car. Besides Kailee, the most serious injury that happened was some cuts on the hand, and Kailee was unfortunately ejected from the vehicle because of that crash. Kailee was a 4.3 GPA student. She wanted to be a doctor, and so she wanted to save lives. We think this is God's will that she is saving lives through her story. Every one of you matter to your friends, to your family, to your community. There's so much in this world we cannot control, but this is such a high impact thing that we can control. And it just takes a second of deciding to buckle up.
So today I'm joined by a wonderful guest, and it's unfortunate that he is with us today because fortunately it was a tragic loss of a young lady that this foundation was created, and the senior program manager, Austin Grammer, is here to tell us more about this foundation. So Austin, it's an honor to meet you, and I'm sorry that we have to meet because that means somebody has passed away.
It's a pleasure to meet you as well, and you're right, it is unfortunate that we have to be talking about something like this, but I'm sure you know as well, it's a blessing to be able to use pain for purpose. So I'm glad to be here with you today.
Wow, that's quite a mouthful, pain for purpose. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and we're talking about the pain that perhaps the parents are feeling, the pain that was left behind by her absence, and now trying to find a way to turn that into something positive, right?
Exactly.
And trying to get people to understand that an innocent life was lost from a very simple act that could have avoided all of this, correct?
100% right. It was a split-second decision that made an impact on an entire family and then ultimately an entire community.
Wow. And that simple act we all know is a law, mm-hmm. right? That we're required to do this. Yet we still feel that we can maybe just for 1 second not need to obey that law, right? And what is the law that we're talking about?
The law we're talking about is buckling your seatbelt. It's a law in every state in the U.S., and it's something that everyone says that they do. In fact, I think it's something like 91% of people say that they buckle their seatbelt every time. But our executive director says this, and I'll repeat the sentiment, is that 91% of people do it most of the time. It's those split-second decisions where, there's something in your back seat, or in Kailee's case, she unbuckled to take a selfie with a friend, and she, may not have wanted that strap in the photo with her. And it's those split-second decisions that can really impact a life.
Yeah, that's tragic. So we're talking today about Kailee Mills, who was a young lady who was actually not far from home when this happened, going out with her friends for the evening. Mm-hmm. And like you said, social media is everything nowadays, and wanted to capture that moment in time with her friends, and took her seatbelt off to get into the back seat, I understand?
Yes,
to jump in that back seat with them when the accident happened. And I understand that everyone else in the car survived.
Exactly. Yeah, there were, I believe, 4 people in the car. And besides Kailee, the most serious injury that happened was some cuts on the hand from exiting the vehicle with broken glass. So everyone else walked away virtually unscathed, and Kailee was unfortunately ejected from the vehicle because of that crash.
Wow. Yeah, and people don't understand that, if a vehicle is going 30 or 50 or mm-hmm. 70 miles per hour, then when the vehicle stops abruptly, right, everything else in that car is still going 30 or 50 or 70 miles an hour until that something hits something. That's exactly to stop
right.
them.
Exactly right. And we say this when we're doing our school programs. A lot of the kids have been through maybe a physics class where they learn about Newton's laws of physics.
Right.
And the seatbelt is designed to stop you with the vehicle, that 3-point seatbelt. And if you don't have it, it's the first thing that you hit that's going to stop you, whether that's the back seat or the front seat that you're hitting, whether that's somebody else in the car, whether that's the windshield, or whether that's the road. It's
Right.
it's going to stop you some way or other, and we want that to be the seatbelt that does the job.
Right. Something's going to stop you, right?
Right.
I would rather a seatbelt stop. It's interesting. Yesterday when I got picked up at the airport, and I got in the back seat of the Uber, and in a split second, I just kind of like moved around and got comfortable, and I thought, I really did. I said, oh, I probably don't need to wear my seatbelt. I'm in the back seat. I'm okay. But I didn't know that the Uber driver's car had this alarm sounding that wouldn't shut off until I put on my seatbelt. And she kindly turned around to me and said, "Can you please put your seatbelt on?" Mm-hmm. And which I did, which stopped the alarm. But I also think that there's this misperceived notion that because you're in the back seat, you don't need to wear the seatbelt. And I was guilty as charged yesterday.
Exactly. And I mean, even historically, laws, when they were first passed in the U.S. in the 80s, only required front row folks to buckle up their seatbelt. But you're just as likely to be ejected or injured in a crash, front seat or back seat, if you're not buckled. And like we were saying, that when someone's not buckled, they become a weapon for everyone else in the car as well.
Yes.
And so whenever we're talking to our kids that say, be selfish about your safety, it's not just you that needs to buckle up. You need to encourage your friend to buckle up, because if you get in a crash and you're rolling over, they can come and hit you. And one, you want to save them, but be selfish about your own safety as well.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Becoming a weapon for other people within the car who are seatbelted in, right? Wow. What a tragedy. So this foundation was started by her family?
It was, and it was pretty quick after the crash. So on October 28th of 2017 is when Kailee was in the crash with her friends. And that same weekend, they had already put up a wooden cross right outside her neighborhood where the crash was. She was about a quarter mile from her house on a 30-mile-an-hour road. Like all of these things that, you think this is not a scenario where someone is ejected and dies in a crash. But all those things came together, and she, unfortunately did die, and they put up the cross. And that same weekend, about 200 students gathered outside the cross and were praying and just being in that space with Kailee. And her dad decided to go and speak with them. In the midst of his pain, 2 days after losing his firstborn child, went and spoke with them and just saw the impact that it had on all those kids. And he says, we have got to spread the word about this. There's not many people talking about seatbelt safety because the assumption is everyone's wearing their seatbelts. But the reality is the number one cause of death for folks 12 to 19 is a motor vehicle crash. And over half of those kids who die in motor vehicle crashes are not wearing their seatbelt. And so it's an epidemic that is not identified as such. And so he created a ribbon for Kailee. They had it at her funeral, and then they chartered the nonprofit and started developing programs from there.
So 2 days after her death, his pain for purpose began.
Absolutely.
And the ribbon is actually a beautifully designed ribbon. It's green. Was green her favorite color?
Yes, mint green was her favorite color. And I think the first iteration may have started out as pink, but they didn't want any confusion with breast cancer awareness. And so they picked mint green because that's her favorite color, and then put a little seatbelt icon on it as well. And it's a perfect ribbon for what we do.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so for here at the museum, our logo, our circle portion of our logo is green, because to us green represents life, right? So I can see like the legacy of Kailee is living on through the color of green, and what it represents is that if you do wear your seatbelt, seatbelts equal life.
Absolutely.
And so it's important. And it, like you were talking about the age group that is affected by the deaths of seatbelt wearers or automotive accidents, and a lot of it is just because children don't understand. Psychologically and biologically, their frontal lobe isn't completely developed at this time in their life, and so they do have a hard time understanding the severity of the consequences behind their actions and what it can lead to if they don't wear their seatbelt all the time, or if they think, oh, it's just 1 second, I'm going only 30 miles an hour and I'm just down the road, right? And I think, even adults, can be at fault for that.
Absolutely.
And I always hear this saying that the majority of accidents happen within a mile from home.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think that's because of the comfortability you have with the area that you're in. It's something you're familiar with. You're almost home. You might be tired. You want to get inside, or you may have just started your trip and you didn't take those 10, 15 seconds to make sure that your mirrors were done right, or that you had your seatbelt on, and you just have your guard down. And that's when it counts the most. That's when you need it the most.
Yeah, or you're driving away with making sure you didn't forget anything.
Exactly.
Did you turn the coffee pot off? Did the garage door get closed? Did the dog get let out? Yeah, all those little things that tend to plague our ability to focus as we're leaving home, or like you say, coming home from a long day. So that totally makes sense. So I always have I have a habit of, as I am backing up, my seatbelt is clicking. I don't click because I'm a multitasker, right? So my multitask in those moments is backing slowly out of my driveway while putting on my seatbelt, right? But my seatbelt's always clicked by the time I hit the street.
Sure.
So, but it's so routine for me now that I do it effortlessly.
Right.
And I, was with my kids as they were getting older. I remember one of my young ones when we were teaching her the importance of seatbelt. We did seatbelt drills for probably about 25 minutes where they would get in the seat, put on their seatbelt, get out. Get in a seat, put on their seatbelt, get out. Because we wanted to, again, stress at a very young age the importance of seatbelts and that they can put their own seatbelts on. And my kids just did it effortlessly throughout their lives. So I think it's important to teach children very young, once they're out of that car seat, do a seatbelt drill.
Absolutely.
It's not punishment. It's saving their life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, the repetition and the habit forming is what's so important because, we were all kids. We all felt invincible.
Yes.
There was maybe things happening around us that we didn't even know about. Maybe kids our age were getting in car crashes and people being injured, but that's nothing that we heard about because we were protected by the adults around us from hearing that kind of thing. And so really just educating, we like to frame it when we're in front of kids, think about more than yourself, think about the people at home who are expecting you to get home safe. Think about them when you make that decision. Take an extra 5 seconds. No one thinks you're uncool for buckling your seatbelt.
Yeah, exactly.
So just do it. It's a habit forming thing. Just take that extra couple of seconds for the first 15 days. Do it intentionally, and then eventually, like getting home once you memorize a route, you don't even remember doing it.
I know.
You've just
I've done
done
that.
it.
Yeah.
You're like, how did I get here?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, did I stop at the stop sign? Oh, I had to because I do it all the time.
Right. And there's also this misconception about cars being safe.
Oh, yes, true.
If you were to get on a roller coaster, David says this all the time, if you get on a roller coaster, you're making sure that thing is down. You're double, triple checking it. You're asking the 16-year-old who's running the roller coaster if it's done right.
Exactly.
And you should do that with anything with a motor.
Yeah, that's true.
Make sure that you're buckled up because, even 20, 25 miles an hour, if you fall off something, four-wheeler, dirt bike, car accident, that's fast when you're stopping immediately.
And I think people don't understand the whole inertia and how fast one has to go before it has consequences on our internal organs, right?
Exactly.
And again, kids are fearless, right? They're fearless, and they also think that they're invincible. And I think a lot of it is just because the concept of death for them it's not realistic, right? Because
exactly.
they're not exposed to it in a way that they can relate to. If they have exposure to death, it's more entertaining. It's maybe in a video game or cartoons. So it's out of touch,
right,
for them. And so, or sometimes kids like to see what they can get away with, right?
Exactly.
And they think that they can get away with not wearing their seatbelt and not realize, I did it last time and nothing happened, so I can do it again.
Right.
And that doing it again becomes a habit, and then a habit eventually could potentially be,
right.
Have serious consequences. So.
Absolutely. And in another way, not even just the kids we find are the most effective way to enact change in a family. Because, if you're 6 years old, if you have a 6-year-old and your 6-year-old's getting onto you every time you get in the car to put on your seatbelt, you're going to feel a little something like, they shouldn't be the one correcting me here.
Exactly.
And so let me put on my seatbelt. But it's also retraining parents. So a lot of parents, just to be honest, don't know how to put people in car seats. They don't know how old a child needs to be still be in a booster. they're not making sure their kids are buckled in the back seat. And so that's a little bit of retraining that we're trying to do in our communities as well, is not just self-accountability for young people, but it's accountability for your entire family, for the adults.
Yeah, let's talk about those car seats. Wow. I find them, they seem to be so challenging and cumbersome nowadays. My grandkids come in for my mom's funeral. And, of course, we have 2 3-year-olds and a 1-year-old. So that requires 3 car seats within the car. And I'm really scratching my head. I'm like, how do you put these in here now? Because before, I mean, for me, when my kids were young, you just strap the buckle over them that's in the car. Now you've got all these hooks that you got to find all these metal things that are in your seats already. And I didn't even know we're in the seats. And there's one that goes over the back seat and you connect. And I was like, I just threw my hands up in the air and I stepped away and I told my daughter, I said, you can do this a lot faster than I can because I'm going to need the learner's manual for this. Yes. But I get it. They're designed now because of the awareness of the impact of cars, the effect that impact has even on a child in a car seat, making sure they're buckled properly. And I believe, your local fire station will help you properly put in a car seat if you have any doubt on how that car seat is to be placed. To definitely go to your nearest fire department and allow them to teach you.
Absolutely. Fire departments are a great place to go for that, as well as like childcare places. A lot of them, if it's a credible location, they're going to have someone who is certified to check car seats. That's not something that we do with the Kailee Mills Foundation. We leave that to the experts. And so there are like young children car seat experts who are out there who want to educate people on how to do it right. And I believe that car seat companies are getting better about making that information more accessible through online. So, the information is just at your fingertips with YouTube.
Yeah, I was ready to say, almost if my daughter wasn't with me, I would have had to YouTube that.
Exactly. And it's more of a, thinking as kind of from a guy's perspective, you're like, I think I can figure it out. I don't need the instruction manual. When it comes to a child's life, make sure that you're doing it correctly. There's no pride when it comes to keeping a child safe. And so look it up, find a YouTube video. There's some guy on YouTube who's going to show you how to do it. Yeah.
And another interesting fact is at what age are they allowed to be forward facing versus backward facing? Because when I had my grandson and I put him in the chair and it swiveled around and put him back, my husband said, "Oh, why is he facing backwards?" And I said, because he's still too young to face forward. And at that moment, I knew there's a certain age for forward facing. I didn't know what it was, so I couldn't answer him properly. Right. I said, but right now his seat goes to the back and he's going to face backwards. And so, but it's interesting how the different generations look back on the safety of the seat belts, the safety of the car seats, just the way we keep people safe in a motor vehicle now has drastically changed.
Right. And just with the spread of information, even talking with my parents, they're like, we used to be in the back of the station wagon facing the road backwards, and we were fine. Yeah. I'm picking on them a little bit, but they didn't know about all the things that were happening around them. There wasn't the information that we have now. That was a very dangerous time.
Yeah.
And as nostalgic as that might be, we've learned, and now that we're not ignorant to the information, we have to do better.
Yeah. My daughter was like, "Mom, you can't put the baby seat in without the base," and I was like, "The base? Yep. I didn't have a base for you, and you turned out just fine." So we do joke about it in a sense, and it does get a little frustrating for the older generation to try and figure out this new, younger generation equipment, if you will. But at the end of the day, I'm grateful for the advancements in technology because it does save lives when it's done properly. So can you tell us more about Kailee Mills Foundation? We know that it was created just within days of her death. But does it raise funds? And what do the funds do if it raises funds? And if children want or anybody wants to be a part of the foundation, how do they do that?
Absolutely. So yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and so all of our funds are collected through individual donations or through grant opportunities or corporate donations. And so we gather these funds, and the purpose of the foundation is to change and educate and advocate for seatbelt use to prevent as much loss of life as possible. And then for those who were not able to impact and unfortunately have experienced loss, is to walk alongside them. And so that's kind of the two areas that we live in. We have our school programs where we are all over the nation, really, with our virtual iBuckle program. But when it comes to our in-person school programs, we're heavily focused in the North Houston, Spring area, getting further into Houston ISD schools, Alief ISD areas like that with our in-person programming. And we go and we put on just as much as we can for these kids. We're handing out safety packets. We're doing seatbelt checks before our program to see what the usage is like at the school. And then after our program, what it is like after. And we're seeing typically a 15 to 17% increase in seatbelt use after our program, which is a significant number. We'd like it to be 100%.
Of course, wouldn't we all?
For all of the kids, but it's about the incremental changes that you can make, because that can change so many family trees, is even that 15 to 17%. And so we go into these schools and we'll bring an impact speaker, whether that's David Mills, that's Kaylee's dad, or Dustin Krieger. He was on the fire department, and he was one of the first responders at Kaylee's crash, and happens to be one of David's friends. And he did have to break the news to David that Kaylee had passed on the day. And so they have really two powerful testimonies about Kaylee and about who Kaylee was before that, and then what Kaylee's story has done after that.
Oh, amazing.
And so we have these school programs that are really, really incredible for our local schools. And then we have our family assistance program. So folks who have experienced loss or injury due to a car crash, doesn't have to be seatbelt related, but we want to walk alongside them in their grief. We want to walk alongside them and help kind of lift those burdens even financially. We'll help pay for medical costs. We'll help pay for funeral costs, headstone costs, anything that we can to lift a burden from a family experiencing loss at the time. We'll create care packages for them, and then we just want to be in contact with them. We know that as soon as a crash happens, oftentimes the community will surround a family, and it's beautiful. Then a couple weeks pass. You're still in the hospital. People aren't coming around anymore. That's where we want to be. We want to be in that liminal space with them as they're transitioning back into, quote, regular life, normal life, so that they don't feel alone, because the only thing worse than being sad is being sad and alone.
Yes.
And so that's kind of where we live. And then kind of the fun side, it's all fun in a way because we're building community, but is our scholarship program. Oh. And so for students that are going into college, we award scholarships in memory of people who have lost their life in a car crash. And so there have been instances where we have given full ride scholarships. This past year, we awarded a $20,000 scholarship, and then several second and third place prizes all across the state and all across the country. Kids are applying for these scholarships, and they do an advocacy event where they have to fundraise for the Kailee Mills Foundation, and they have to call a family of someone who has lost a child and interview them and talk about the impact of seatbelt safety in their own home and how they can advocate for seatbelt safety in the name of their child. And so it's a really impactful scholarship program. Thousands of people start the application, very few finish it because of how intense it is. And so because of that, every kid who completes the scholarship application essentially gets a scholarship. So it's a very high percentage that you'll get something. And so we love doing that and being able to be a part of their story, a new person's story, and keep the legacy of who we call Kaylee's Angels, who are other people who have lost their life in car crashes. Yeah.
Oh, so when you go to the schools and you're doing the presentations, when Kaylee's dad comes and speaks, what's the age group of that audience?
So our bread and butter is probably high school students. Mm-hmm. These are our drivers, our juniors and seniors, sometimes sophomores and even freshmen.
Those that are not with their parents, basically in the car with them, telling them to put on their seatbelts.
Exactly. And so those are the ones that we know we can have the most immediate impact on the road with. The ones who are going to forget to put their seatbelt on or think it's not cool for whatever reason. And so that's our bread and butter. However, we do programming all the way down to kindergarten to start that habit forming process as early as possible, so that in 14 years when they're seniors, they don't even have to think twice about it. They're like, why are you still an organization? I've been putting on my seatbelt for 14 years.
Well, maybe because next week you might think it's not cool.
I mean, yes. Yeah,
we want to make sure that habit doesn't wear off, right, or that you don't get influenced by a friend to do that.
Exactly.
That it's not their habit, therefore they want to make it now something that you are doing because you're proving yourself to them.
Right. Exactly. And so, we want to be in front of kids of all ages, even adults, if there's an opportunity for that, because there's never a wrong time to change that habit. And we just want to impact as many people as possible, but especially young people.
Yeah. And I mean, you could still get a ticket for not wearing your seatbelt.
Absolutely. You can get a ticket.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that doesn't always deter people because, I mean, $150, $200 ticket is not going to always change a habit. It's just going to make you mad at the police.
That's true.
But I'll tell you that the police that's not a money-making tool for them.
Right.
They are the first responders. Them, folks in our ambulance, our trauma surgeons, they're the people who see this every day, and they know what the ramifications are of not wearing your seatbelt. There are very few people who die in a car crash if they had their seatbelt on. They're very rarely having to cut people out of seatbelts who are deceased.
Passed away. Wow.
And so very often it's someone who's not buckled up or something related to not being buckled up.
Wow. Yeah, because like we said, you're a moving object within. Yeah. So wow. I did. I remember one time I was coming home from the hospital one time where I worked, and there was a car crash, and the guy had got injected out of the truck, and I remember his sister coming up to him, and he's laying in the ground, and she's screaming at him, saying, "I told you to put on your seatbelt. I told you to put on your seatbelt." And he was completely unconscious. He was still breathing. He was still alive. But she was screaming and yelling at him, and she had totally forgot. She was so focused on him, she had forgot that there were two children also in the car. They were seatbelted in. But another bystander had already got him out of the car because the way the car was on the freeway, they had to remove the children for the safety, right? Yeah. So they took the children out of the car, and all she could focus on was her brother who had been thrown from the truck. Yeah. And the bystander had the children still on the freeway, but not what I felt was in the safe position. And so it was, processing that whole scene and realizing that because he didn't wear his seatbelt, she put her own children in danger. Mm-hmm. So he impacted 3 lives that night just by not wearing his seatbelt. Again, he did survive. Yeah. But the fact that his act took her focus away from 2 young children who couldn't fend for themselves. Yes. They could have turned out a lot worse.
Exactly. And one of the things that we hear sometimes, maybe not as much anymore, is that, what if I get in a crash and I'm stuck in my seatbelt and I can't get out?
Yeah.
I'll just tell you right now, that is such an unrealistic scenario. The data shows it. Less than 0.5% of people that die by fire or by water, which is that fear of if I go into a lake or if my car catches on fire, die because of the result of them being caught in a seatbelt.
So are you saying that it's very, it's more often than not that seatbelt will release?
Absolutely.
If your car's on fire, yes, or your car gets submerged into the lake.
And you're putting yourself in a situation where you might be able to be conscious to help get yourself out. If you're not in that seatbelt, you're much more likely to be knocked unconscious, to be ejected from that vehicle. The risk of being caught inside the seatbelt, which is the argument that we hear, is just unrealistic, and so it's not worth it to do it for that reason.
So the seatbelt saves more lives than it traps. Absolutely. Is what we're saying. Yeah,
seatbelts save. The data shows at least 15,000 lives every year in the U.S.
Wow.
U.S. alone.
Wow. So although we unfortunately lost Kailee, it seems that she is creating a ripple effect that continues to be formed even today, and it sounds like it'll be formed for years to come.
Absolutely. Kailee was a 4.3 GPA student. She wanted to be a doctor, and so she wanted to save lives. We think, because we're faith-filled people, that this is God's will, that she is saving lives through her story. And while her family, and even though I didn't know her, would give so much to just meet her in person and wish that this didn't happen.
Of course.
But because it did, we're able to use her legacy for something positive, and that positive act is saving lives of young people just like her.
Wow. that's, if you think about the magnitude of that, right? It's like, we know she's doing a great purpose posthumously, but at the same time, the cost for this purpose was her life.
Yeah.
Cut so short just because she failed to keep her seatbelt on.
Yes.
You know, something, I think what it takes, maybe 4 seconds?
If that.
If that, to click your seatbelt,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and our life ends in a blink of an eye,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Wow. And I know that, you know, everybody would love to leave a legacy in their life. But I think that it's more profound for us to ask people who are listening, young teenagers, young adolescents that are listening, that let's not let your legacy be when you're young. Live a life and have that life that's been lived be your legacy.
Absolutely. Every time we go and visit students, we talk about the statistics and the science behind how to keep them safe. But we always end with, we're telling you this because every one of you matter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To us, to your friends, to your family, to your community, and your loss would be felt. We don't want to lose you. You're going to go on to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and maintenance folks and like all these incredible things in our community.
You're going to be a mother. You're going to be a father.
Exactly.
And you're going to then understand the significance of wanting your child to put on their seatbelts.
Absolutely.
And have that opportunity to live a long life.
Absolutely. And so that's really the message, is that your life matters. And there's so much in this world we cannot control. But this is such a high impact thing that we can control. And it just takes a second of deciding to buckle up and then remembering why you're buckling up. We like to say buckle up for Kailee, but you can put buckle up for mom, buckle up for dad, buckle up for brother.
Yes.
Just buckle up. Do
Yeah,
it for somebody that
exactly.
you love.
Yeah. So just know that clicking it is cool, right?
It is. Clicking it is so cool.
Yeah. Click it, unclick it, click it, unclick it. Yeah. Make a little rhyme out of it.
We
But
have
make sure it
we have
ends
a
with the click.
ding we have a ding ding jingle that says you hear that ding ding, buckle up that thing. It is hilarious. I recommend everyone look it up. It is catchy and it will remind you to put on your seatbelt.
And say that one more time.
You hear that ding ding, buckle up that thing.
There you go.
There it is.
You know what, Austin? It has been a pleasure to meet you, an honor to talk with you, and more so have an opportunity to continue to advocate for Kailee and her family. And if there's any questions that you guys have, where can they go to get more information?
Yes, you can find us on all socials, so Facebook, Instagram, all of that. And then you can also find us at KaileeMillsFoundation.org. That's Kailee Mills, Mills, Foundation.org.
Well, thank you again, Austin. And everybody out there, make sure you buckle up.
Buckle up for Kailee.